will be light eventually. On that table, there's info from the One campaign. There's some jars of clay vinyl. You have CDs too? So there's CDs and vinyl over there. And then there's also some BloodWater info, and we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. Do you have a... Yeah. He's running one up here. Yeah. All right. Hi.
Hey.
It's great to see you. I know it's a lot of beard on the stage at one time, but we're going to see if we can stop the world from exploding. Really been excited about having this conversation with you guys. And I think what I'd like to talk about today, for our folks here, if you've been a part of MCC for a while, a day like this is not surprising or shocking. We do this sort of thing. We talk about these sort of issues. But for lots of people, when you bring in sort of the word advocacy and faith, it's almost like for a lot of folks that's sort of an oil and water experience. Like you can do one or the other, but you can't do both. And what I've noticed with you guys is, so you are a part of a band, right?
Sometimes.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm ready for Christmas.
Good.
And you have a show.
We have Jars of Clay is touring once again.
Yeah.
And when I say once again, I mean literally just once. We do we don't tour anymore, so we're doing one show, December 1st in Franklin, Tennessee. It's our winter world tour. And, it's a fun night. It's Jars, and we bring out our musical friends, and we all just play Christmas music. Santa's going to be there this year, and Mrs. Claus also.
Somebody just whistle?
Yeah.
Like, woo! Yeah.
Way to go. All right. Yeah, I mean, he actually called me. So
wow.
I've gotten some phone calls in my days, but that was a pretty impressive one.
That's a big call.
Yeah, that's almost like getting a call from the president or, some presidents.
Yeah.
And it was really amazing.
So I went last year to this show, my wife and I.
Yes.
And it was so incredible. We're taking our almost 9-year-old to the show.
Good.
It's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't heard their Christmas album, I think it's over there.
It's over there, yeah.
Are there tickets still available? Because it's this Saturday.
Yeah, it's this coming Saturday. And there's, I think, 30 or 40 tickets left as of today. So
there's enough for some of you.
Yeah, so if you want to go.
Some of you will just be standing outside looking in.
This section can go.
You can go.
Yeah.
Nobody else can go. So the reason I bring that up is so you're a part of a band and you're doing work, faith music. One of the things I always was impressed with your music is I don't necessarily think people listened to the words all the time, but
true.
It was Adams in sermons too, right? So you're doing this work, you're touring, you're singing about faith, you're talking about faith. Yeah. And Scoggins, you served some time on a church staff, which sounds like you were in prison. You served some hard time on a church staff. So both of you come from the context of faith work, and you both have found your way into doing advocacy work. So I'd love, Scoggins, we'll just start with you. Could you talk a little bit about how did you make that transition?
Right. I was on staff at a church up in Cincinnati for quite a few years. My wife and I were sent out as missionaries from that church. We served overseas for 6 years, and so 12 years of ministry. But we were a part of a church. It was a non-denominational Christian church that really kind of gave to Caesar what is Caesar's, and we did our own thing. You know, we did mission work around the world. We did local outreach. We did all kinds of different ministries and really stayed away from anything political or anything in terms of advocacy work. And it wasn't until much later, I think I was following the One campaign on Facebook, and I clicked on something, and then a couple of weeks later, a staff person was in my area of South Georgia, and then a couple of days later, I'm in the congressman's office using my pastoral evangelistic muscle that I used for so many years in the church, and I was able to use it on behalf of the least of these, on behalf of people thousands of miles away. And I was like, wow, I'm in Savannah, Georgia, because I was really kind of mourning not being connected to the international scene. And I was like, wow, I can be in anywhere USA and use my voice, and this congressman is listening, and that next day he might vote yes because I came in and spoke about a piece of legislation. So that's when it clicked for me.
Cool. Yeah. So and then you started working for the One campaign shortly.
I did.
So you believed in this enough that you're like, oh, I'm gonna hitch my cart to that horse?
Well, I think it has been said that advocacy is currently an unused muscle of the church. You know, the church has many muscles. We have many different things that we do, and we do beautifully, and that many others aren't doing. But this advocacy muscle is in many churches unused. Not you. You all have done this beautiful exercise over the last couple of years that I want to highlight a few things of the results of what you all did. But I think that's what clicked for me, was seeing how this muscle can be used and how it can be used for good, and not on behalf of ourselves, but the beautiful part of it is that you are using that muscle on behalf of the other.
So Dan, obviously one of the other things you've done is you've formed an organization called BloodWater. Could you first off tell us a little bit about what BloodWater is, and then how did you get into the work of advocacy?
Yeah. BloodWater is an organization that we work with local grassroots organizations in Eastern and Southern Africa that do clean water projects and HIV/AIDS support work. So it's not like an outside international organization coming in and dictating water projects or things like that. We find these small grassroots organizations that are doing amazing work in their local communities, and then we fund the projects that they want to do, that they have designed and said, we know that this is what we need in our communities. We say, okay, go ahead, we'll fund that, and then we grow those organizations to become really sustainable, capable organizations if they have problems in any area of business. Running businesses, it's hard to do, right? And there's so many facets, and so we'll come in and make sure that those organizations can function at a level to where we can graduate them out, and then they become attractive to other groups to come in and fund what they're doing also. So we're kind of an incubator and also a funder of clean water and HIV support programs.
So what is the cost for something like that?
It's really incredible, actually, because of the way we work. Normally, like, it would cost a lot more to do things that are sustainable, but for us, because we work with the local community and we're empowering them to do all the work and things like that, it doesn't cost very much to have a huge impact. In fact, it's $40 provides clean water, sanitation, hygiene, and health support for an individual in these communities in Africa for life.
For life. For
forever.
As long as they live. $40.
Yeah. And so it works out to what? It's $200 for a family of 5, to give a family of 5 access to clean water, sanitation, hygiene, and health support, which is amazing. And the only reason we can say that is because it's not the part of doing development work that's so unsustainable has always been that people come in from outside, and then those communities become kind of beholden to the organization. They have to, when something breaks, they have to call the organization to come back and fix it. And over time, those relationships, there's nobody in the community that's involved. They're not invested. They don't own it. They don't know how to fix it. So things break. And actually, 18 months is the lifespan of a water project without community support. So a lot of the other organizations that work in that sector, their projects are breaking quite often, and then the people in the community are usually going back to a river or a stream or a lake where they were getting water, and so it's problematic. But because we work with them and we give them all the training and tools to do that, the projects last for generations.
So you're empowering them.
We are absolutely empowering them, yes.
And it's this recognition of human dignity as well.
Yes, and that matters most of all. You know, even while Scoggins was just speaking, I was remembering, I just got back from Africa, and the thing that I have valued so much about advocacy has been that it really is a place where I, as a member of the church, as a believer, who is fully bought into this idea that human beings are inherently valuable, that God has made each one of us valuable, I get to go to the Hill and remind people that that's true. And you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. It used to be that we could start a conversation in a room and go, all right, we'll start with the point that we all know that all people are valuable, no matter what color their skin is or what language they speak or where they were born. But in recent years, I feel like I go to those places and I have to start from further back. And I have to try to convince people that everybody has value. And that's something that really people in the church are uniquely made to do. Like, we are the ones that kind of hold the story and go, all right, we know that everybody has value. And when I was in Africa, like, we sat with this woman. We're in this community called Suki in Ethiopia, and it's this place where there's 25,000 people living on the side of a hill, privately owned hill. So there's no government infrastructure. So literally 25,000 people without a bathroom, without clean water, without access to sanitation, and very minimal health care. And people are just existing in this place. If they put in a latrine, the owners of the property double their rent, and they have to leave because they can't afford it anymore. It's like an impossible place. And so you see people working in these places that are impossible, and you realize they're not working necessarily to like end the water crisis or do all this like amazing banner kinds of things. They're going in and just helping people recognize the dignity that they have and affirming that dignity for people that are constantly being told you don't matter. And that's where advocacy comes in to me in the church, right? That's our job every day, right, is to help people understand that they matter, that God has said they matter.
So, yes, beautiful and powerful. How did you, I mean, obviously you grew up, or you at least at some point became a Christian, you're doing all this work, and that faith informs that. What was the moment? Was there a moment for you where you realized, I can no longer sit on the sidelines on this, I've got to do something?
Absolutely. It's funny. One of the reasons I care so much about the One campaign is that I was a kid, and it was 1985, and I watched Live Aid on television. I saw all my musical heroes taking their music and their art and leveraging it for something bigger than themselves, for something that was more challenging than just building a musical empire. And that stuck with me as a kid in 1985. And when I finally had a band and we were gaining a platform and having success, I realized this is something that I can't separate. I can't separate this need to tell a bigger story from the music and the art and platform that we would have. So it's always been there and part of Jars of Clay's story. It's been a part of my story. But there was the moment when I went to Africa and I spent time with people that were wrestling with HIV. And there were people in the church that were saying, we shouldn't help people with HIV because that's God's wrath and we should just ignore them and let them die. And I think that was the moment where it just clicked for me. I was like, all right, as a person who speaks into the church culture, and at the time that was Jars had a platform and we had some influence there, I would say we've got to help the church not be afraid of this and to step into it and understand that there's a privilege here in being able to work alongside of the poor and lift up the poor. And we forget that. I just think we forget it. And so that was a moment for me where I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I started partnering before One campaign existed. And then it turned into the One campaign, and I got to be part of that and just be an advocate and a person who used my voice. And I've been doing it for almost 19 years.
You know, that's one of the things when I've never been in a band. Nobody will take me. I have an untapped talent.
You're too tall. No.
But, you know, being in church world, one of the things that happens is you get so busy making sure the light bill gets paid and making sure that everything gets done in the church world, that it's very easy to sort of lose contact with, it's bigger than just our church, and it's bigger than just this little thing we've got going here, that there's a whole world out there of people with real need, and we can do something about it, whether it's a $40 donation or whether it's just taking the time to write a letter and use our voice. So one of the things we always do when we have these sorts of events is we're trying to mobilize people. And so I'm going to ask Scoggins to talk about what we're going to ask from you today. So Scoggins is going to tell you about this. We're going to have something on the screen. Here's the thing. If you don't want to write a letter today, that's totally okay. We're not going to judge you. Jesus might, don't know. But we're not going to judge you whatsoever.